Real Chat, Episode 31, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
The world had been through a trial by fire, and only the greatest warriors and their deadliest enemies emerged from the flames.
Who are you?
Nobody.
Mister, I can feel it. The dice are rolling.
He was the one they called Mad.
But he's just a raggedy man.
But to those whose lives hung in the balance,
Where's the waiting ones? Waiting for what? Waiting for you.
he was the one they called Hero.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Now, Mad Max is back in Beyond Thunderdome. Mel Gibson, Tina Turner, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Two men enter, one man leaves. Everybody, welcome to episode 31 of Real Chat, a podcast that promises week in, week out, the real world as we know it. Today, Real Chat is retrospectively looking at 1985's Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, the third instalment of George Miller's Australian post-apocalyptic franchise, a film that departs from the essential chase format established by its two predecessors. Although the film was a success, and the arena where two men enter, one man leaves has become a catchphrase, opinion remains divided over whether Thunderdome is up to the level of the first two instalments. My name is Adam Stolfo, and I'm joined here as usual by co-host Brose Avard. Brose, how are you?
That's right. Welcome to Real Chat's Thunderdome. 4 men enter, and actually 4 of us will leave as well. Well, I'll stay here. 3 will leave.
Well, this is your place,
it's
Brose,
my place. So,
you know, like, you
4
can
men
leave, but...
enter, and one's going to leave, and another one will come. It's confusing. It's not as succinct as the Thunderdome, but it is Real Chat. Mad Max 3.
Welcome, Brose.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
And joining us as well, the return of Andrew McCaskill.
What a heroic introduction. Where have I been? I can't even answer that. But thank you for that. Yeah, good to be here. Interesting film. This one, I think, divides people quite a bit. So looking forward to getting into it.
And welcome back as well, Mr. Matthew O'Neill. Matt, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm back, and I like how we're all suspended from flying foxes for this episode. Thanks. It's going to be difficult, but I think it's a nice choice.
I didn't say that was a requirement.
And I just look. Let me in the Real Chat Thunderdome. I've checked the chainsaw and I've serviced it, and it will start as soon as I pull the ripcord. I'm not going to have to stick around with it for 10 minutes. Okay, there'll be no suspense over whether the chainsaw works or not in the Real Chat Thunderdome.
This is an episode of our Vintage Vault retrospective series, a conscious effort to tie in selected shows with something of relevance to the present. And with the fourth entry of the franchise, Mad Max Fury Road, out this year and racking up impressive numbers at the Australian and international box office. Just quickly here, bros, 366.5 million so far, to be very specific.
Wow.
I'm sure you'll all agree that there is no better time to delve headfirst into the franchise. What are some of your initial thoughts on this one, guys? I'm going to start over here with Andrew for this one, because Andrew's the Mad Max fan. Okay, so...
You're the one.
Yes,
Without
it is
you,
me.
there'd be no Fury Road.
I mean, yeah, like obviously the new ones come out this year, so I've had to revisit them, and I love them. I think it's one of those rare series of films where there's not a really bad one. There's one that doesn't jump the shark too much. I mean, this one obviously is the one that people would disagree is that one. So yeah, it's a film that tries some different things. Had a pretty troubled pre-production with Brian Kennedy dying in a crash.
We'll get into that, yeah.
Into a plane crash. So that affected things a lot. And the film, no doubt, suffers because of that traumatic event, and it's a bit of a mess in some places. But there's a lot of good stuff to enjoy as well in the film.
What about yourself, Bruce? Initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I guess this one's a bit interesting for me because when this one came out, I was, watching Ghostbusters was around, Back to the Future, and Beyond Thunderdome. This one, I remember seeing patches of it on TV, probably in 87, 88. It was never one that I fixated on. It was not a film that I was particularly interested in. As we talked about earlier, We Don't Need Another Hero was a massive hit around the time as well, 85, 86 for Tina Turner. So yeah, it's a film that's left a mark on my memory, but it's not a film that I invested a lot of time in. And I guess there was a lot of novelty in this film in terms of some of the casting, which we'll get to later as well. So I guess I was at that age where I identified people in this film from other places, and that was part of the excitement as well. Tina Turner being one, and then some of the others we'll mention later. So yeah, it's an interesting film for me, and I don't know if I ever really connected it to the first and second films. This was more of a novelty third film, and almost separate in some ways.
Yeah. Just quickly, my biggest issue with this installment is the fact this one just doesn't feel as fun as the others. And I'm going to include, we haven't reviewed it yet, but I'm going to include Fury Road in there as well. They were great fun.
Yeah.
This one felt a lot more of a chore for me to get through, and I just feel it loses its way, particularly in the middle, I think.
Yeah.
And that last 20 minutes, where it does feel more like a Mad Max film, by then I'm already
moved on. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, it's pretty messy. I think that's probably the... But
they obviously started with an unfinished script or a script that wasn't up to scratch.
Yeah. This is the first time I've watched it since probably like 1991 or 92. And that was last night I watched it. And it feels like it's one Ruvio away from a Hook film. For those of you who've seen Hook.
Yeah.
No one?
Ruvio is the tubby...
No, Ruvio is the leader of the...
Yeah.
The Lost Boys.
Yeah.
The kids in this film don't have as solid drivers maybe Hook does. Is that what you...
No.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, look, I actually really enjoyed it this time, watching it. I had fun. I thought it's just a bit of a mess, but all the little parts, I enjoyed them for what they were. Yeah.
Even its most ardent fans have to admit that Thunderdome doesn't provide the adrenaline rush of Mad Max 2. It goes quiet for a long stretch during the middle when Max discovers a society of lost children living in the wilderness, and only picks up steam, literally, near the end with a wild chase involving the train. Some viewers blame the change on studio involvement, since Thunderdome was the first of the series to be co-financed by Warner Brothers. But it seems more likely that writer-director George Miller and co-writer Terry Hayes realised that they couldn't do the same thing a third time. Miller has repeatedly said that he considered Mad Max 2 a chance to redo Mad Max properly with a better budget, more time, and the benefit of experience. In the process, he added an overlay of mythology that elevated the story into legend. And after losing his family and defeating the Humongous, Max couldn't just race down the road a third time as if nothing had happened. He had to be a changed man with a different adventure. So I understand.
I don't know if they achieve that, though, because Max is still the drifter. He's still out for all he can get and willing to help others if he benefits from it. Like, Max hasn't changed, has he, in this? I think it's the same Max. And I kind of like that. And that's one of the things that I kind of discovered through talking about these films on Real Chat, is that kind of defines the Max character. He's a drifter trying to survive, happy to do heroic things as long as at the end of the day he gets what he wants and what he needs to continue. And this film continues that idea, doesn't it?
I found him to be a bit more of a clown in this. I thought it was...
Yeah, he does clown around a bit.
They added a fair bit of comedy into his character. And I'm not saying that took away from the film, but with the latest Mad Max film, I think they go back to the first two with that character.
There's also...
I don't want to touch on Fury Road too much, but yeah, I just found Mad Max 3 kind of, for me, drifted away a little bit from the Mad Max character.
What elements in his character do you think is more comical?
Oh, just like when he meets the kids and he's... or even just like when he's suspended from the Thunderdome, just getting thrown around, and, and he's also a lot more chatty in this,
You get a feeling...
smart ass,
you get a feeling from this film of what Mel Gibson, the Hollywood star, is going to be.
Yeah, definitely.
As opposed to the very Ozploitation, playing it low-key kind of Mad Max. This is the Martin Riggs Mad Max film. This is the Lethal Weapon. It is. He's very, like you're saying, he's got that...
The mullet's even bigger in this one than in the Lethal Weapon series.
When they cut that mullet off, that's probably my favourite moment of the whole film, because you just can't wait for that.
It's horrible, isn't it?
He's looking very William Wallace in the first half, isn't he?
He is looking a bit
very
Willy
much
Wallace.
so, yes.
He is looking a bit Willy Wallace.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is a Kennedy Miller Productions release. It was released on the 10th of July 1995 in the US and the 8th of August 1995 in Australia. It was shot primarily in Australia, more specifically the Blue Mountains, Colonel and Homebush Bay in New South Wales, and also Coober Pedy in South Australia. The budget was an estimated $12.3 million, and as I mentioned before, it's the first of the series made with American financing. which also, I guess, goes some way to explain why American stars such as Tina Turner appear in this film as well. It grossed $36.2 million in the US and $4.5 million in Australia. They don't have any worldwide figures, but I grabbed those two. So although the film's budget was more extravagant than its predecessors, its box office yield was only moderate in comparison, really, when you look at the numbers.
Yeah, it hasn't done great business with a bigger budget necessarily. Yeah. But it's still a fairly conservative budget. It's between a half and a third of what a blockbuster would have been around the same time. Like Ghostbusters was $26 million, and so it's still a reasonably conservative budget for a film of this scale. So they've done a good job.
Films always rely on their reviews to spread the word, and I think the general consensus was that this was a bit of a mixed bag, this one, whereas the first two were beloved and cult favourites. This one obviously had a bit more polish to it, and
there's also that other thing too, I guess, where the original Mad Max was just a small film that was made and released and did better than expected. That was just one of many Australian films that were released around that time, and it just happened to do better than the others because it had more appeal or it hit the right chord. Mad Max 2, I think, was a more anticipated sequel, and they really used the elements of the first film and improved on it and made a better film. Whereas this is kind of taking those two smaller films and making a blockbuster out of it. And expectation would have been a lot higher, anticipation would have been a lot higher, and it was an American co-production, so there would have been a lot more expectation around that as well. So
definitely.
Yeah.
This is the first film we've looked at, Brose, which has more than one director.
Yes, of course.
As well. So 2 directors were hired so that George Miller could concentrate on the stunts and action scenes, while George Ogilvy handled the performances of the large cast of actors.
Yes, 2 directors enter, 1 director leaves.
That's it.
With a career.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I actually didn't even... Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I didn't even know this until getting our hands on the film again for preparation for today. So when that actually came up, I was like, wow, I didn't know that there was one of these that was like, not just George Miller.
Yeah. Well, that's the big thing, was that George Miller was... mourning his friend's loss, and basically just decided he couldn't do the whole film.
Yeah.
So I think it was a very last minute decision.
Yeah, his friend was producer Byron Kennedy, so he did the previous 2. So just for the people that don't know, and I know Andrew said it just off the top, but he was killed in a helicopter crash in 1983 while location scouting for the film. And George Miller was hesitant to move forward without his producing partner, and he's quoted as saying, "I was reluctant to go ahead. Then there was sort of a need to, so let's do something just to get over the shock and grieve and all of that." And obviously as well, they have a title card at the very end of the film which says for Byron as well. So with my general feelings about this whole movie, when I heard this behind the scenes story, because I didn't know any of it, it sort of made a bit more sense as to like why the movie felt the way it did to me.
Yeah.
It's a great excuse.
Yes.
It's in the top 10 of excuses, My
really
best mate
is.
died.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not to your liking.
Yeah.
Ogilvy's interesting. It's worth focusing on Ogilvy just quickly. He did a lot of TV directing before and after this film, and he directed some of the greatest kind of miniseries in Australian television history, especially during the 80s. Kennedy and Miller were involved with those. So things like Bodyline, The Dismissal, The Shirley, and then he went on to direct episodes of Blue Heelers. So he is a good director in terms of working with actors and getting believable performances out of them. I don't know if we see a lot of it in Mad Max 3 necessarily, but he's not a hack TV director by any means. He's a good,
and you got to say it's not
actors director.
It's pretty seamless too. You can't really notice a definite change in direction,
in tone, or
like the way the shots are composed, and the whole film still feels like a Miller film. But then the chase sequence in the end is really pure Miller, and that's obviously where he really took over.
Yeah, he's a teacher as well, Ogilvy.
Oh, there you go.
He teaches and directs at NIDA and the Actors Centre in Australia.
Yeah.
And in 1983, he was made a member of the Order of Australia in the 1983 Queen's Birthday Honours list for his services to the theatre and performing arts. So yeah, he hasn't done that many movies. His film credits include, obviously, this one, Shortchanged, also 1985, the much awarded The Place at the Coast, The Crossing in 1990.
With Russell Crowe?
Yeah, that was, I think, Russell Crowe's debut, I think.
Right, okay. Yeah, I would say, and I'm sure we'll get to it in a second, the problem with this film is the script.
Okay,
Without
so...
question.
I agree.
Yeah, for me, the entire problem with
Which is
this...
interesting, because Terry Hayes and George Miller returned, because they did
one and
second
two.
one. Oh, they
second one. Second one, definitely, yeah.
What goes wrong here, in your opinion?
Well, it's interesting because was it in Mad Max or Mad Max 2, you mentioned that Miller had a post-apocalyptic kids film in mind to do after Mad Max 2.
I remember that being mentioned, and it feels like he's jammed it in here.
It feels very jammed in, and watching it this time, I didn't realise how choppy and shoehorned the script seemed to be put together. I remember it being a lot more coherent, but I hadn't seen it, probably it's like you, for 15 years or so. But the first act surprised me at how strong it was.
It's great.
And it hooked me right in. When we get to Bartertown, there's these beautifully formed characters and there's these great relationships and the dynamic's really strong. And right up into the Thunderdome, I'm in. This film has got me hooked. Then, once he leaves and he ends up with the kids, it doesn't make any sense. And I think there's a couple of problems. First of all, there's kind of two films being shoehorned together that shouldn't be. But also, in this type of film, I think it's a big ask, and I think this is where the Star Wars prequels fall down a bit as well. It's a big ask to draw an audience into one fantastical location and environment and then expect them to switch straight away into another one. And that's the problem I had. It was very jarring to go from a very desert, very desperate, very kind of crime-laden political environment into this very innocent, lush, foresty kind of child environment. And it was a real big switch, and my brain wasn't ready for it. It was too big a jump. It's the fuck off moment. And it usually happens for me in films in the third act where something ridiculous happens and my hands just go up and I'm like, nah, fuck off. This doesn't work. Whereas in this film, it happens at the start of the second act when he ends up in this childlike area. And
it's a shame because I actually don't mind the sequence with the kids. Like I always seem to hate it. I think as a kid, it was the boring part of the film. You wanted to get back to
I'm not saying that's a bad sequence either.
It's actually really strong. It stands up.
It doesn't quite work.
Doesn't fit at all.
It's jarring.
Film.
But yeah, you kind of wanted to see. You'd like to see that film on its own basis, but obviously it just doesn't fit with the Mad Max scenario.
It feels jarring.
But it's like there's a real whimsical kind of quality to it, and there's like so much detail in the characters of the kids and their whole plight in that little kind of
I do find the speech, the vernacular they use in that a bit annoying.
I found that really grating.
The
Australian...
the mispronunciation.
The telling.
The members.
Yeah, all that stuff.
The members. And I just found this, like, from Mad Max 1 to 2... Things have escalated, haven't they?
Yeah,
they've just like.
Well, that's a great thing about the first act of this film. Shit got real.
It's just like, but even then, I was just kind of thinking it's all. I mean, you let it go obviously because it's a film, but like things have really like gone to shit.
Yeah,
they've already set up like Bartertown, which incidentally I was in Bendigo the other week, and I can tell you now it's quite a like accurate description of the future that they had there. Yeah, very similar. But anyway, Bartertown, and it just felt like it moved too quick. But as you said, that first act, you get into it like with Master Blaster and just all the characters in there. And the pigs and everyone living off pig shit. Like
the other thing that's weird about this film too is the dynamic between I don't know what Tina Turner's character's name is off the top of my head.
Auntie Entity.
Oh God, Auntie. So the relationship between Auntie and Master Blaster is quite different in the first act to the third act, or it switches on its head, and that's not really executed all that well either. Like you don't really know what obviously she wants to take power, but he kind of runs the Bartertown, but that's not quite as smooth as it could be.
It just seems he knows how to switch something on and off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously they're not that intelligent in the future.
Apparently.
The fallout's had an effect. And also suddenly there's American women rocking up and taking over little towns in Australia.
Well, you know what Australia was like in the 80s. We'd do anything an American told us. God, we watched Don Lane every night so we love Americans here.
Cinematographer Dean Semler's back.
Yes, very, very happy to see him back. He did such a beautiful job on the second one. His style just fits these films so well. He's just got such a dynamic way he moves the camera, and it's just a real ballsy kind of old school way of filmmaking, and he's so good at that. You know, he's proved it time and time again with big action films, big westerns. He's just the man for outdoor action set pieces.
So you just feel like it's the natural progression of the second one? Like there's a continuity there?
I mean, definitely. I think it's got an even more epic quality. I mean, with the sand dunes, it's got that real kind of classic kind of quality about it. So it takes it up a notch again with the frame of the film. But great job. And I also learned recently that Dean Semler did Cocktail as well. So he's a very versatile DOP. So
nice.
Yeah, no, it's good to have him back.
I got a quote here from him as well. He says, "Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome proved far more challenging than Mad Max 2. We were dealing dealing with more varied environments than before, and it was essential that each of the worlds created for the film have a distinctively different look.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that Australian DOPs, they're just very good at the great outdoors. So many Aussie DOPs. John Seal, who does the most recent Mad Max. I mean, they're the go-to guys, it seems. And yeah, they're just very good at using natural light and, weathering the conditions.
Yeah, wow. Dean Semler's incredible. We talked a bit about him in Mad Max too, but Dances with Wolves he did, Waterworld, which you can see why you'd get him for Waterworld. Jump on IMDb, guys, and have a look at his work. It's just incredible, yeah.
But been to some of his classes, and he's just such a, relaxed, Aussie guy. You wouldn't know that he's done some of the most incredible films of the last 30 years. He's
done things like Get Smart and Bruce Almighty, like some really good comedies in there as well, Nutty Professor, and God, this guy's incredible.
Yeah.
We're up to your favourite segment, Brose, the cast.
Yeah.
So Mel Gibson plays Mad Max Rockatansky.
Yeah, Mullet Max rocks up, which is good.
Roves the desert aimlessly as usual. His existence entirely based around self-survival.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Max character, and I think we've covered off on Mel Gibson already, I guess. He's a little bit more playful. He's a little bit funnier. More of that Mel Gibson humour that we were used to in the 80s pops up in this, and I think he still does a solid job. I don't think he's letting anybody down in this film. And in the action sequences, he's formidable. Like he's not the biggest guy in the world, but you believe that he's a strong kind of guy. So yeah,
confidence is there,
confidence. Yeah.
That's the biggest difference between the first one and 2 and 3.
And another thing about that first act is they set up really well the idea that he's an ingenious kind of warrior, I guess. He relies on his wits more than his strength, and they show that when he first meets Auntie and takes out all her guards. And then when you get to the Thunderdome, then that extends across into that fight sequence, so it's all believable and set up quite well. So the first act, the script is quite tight.
You've got to say, though, I mean, if you look at all the films, the fact he's called Mad Max, he's not very mad.
In this, he's not mad at all.
In the first one, he obviously is at the end. But in the second one, and the third one, he's just kind of this kind of silent hero, the thankless hero. And I love that. I do love that. But there's no real moments where he goes nuts, apart from...
Definitely not in this one.
Not in this one, and the second one either, I would say. So it's kind of interesting that he's just this kind of laconic hero.
This is the first one of the 3, though, where they actually refer to him as the man with no name as well.
Yeah.
I noticed, which is pretty cool, because, I mean, we've talked about it already with the first 2 there. It's just like a take on that Clint Eastwood character from the Westerns, and here he is this time. He is actually being introduced as the man with no name. But, yeah, after that scene where he's introduced, it just kind of... The wheels start to come off, and we go down the kiddie route.
On that, his name is only spoken once in the entire movie. Did you know that?
At the start.
Yeah, just after he meets Master Blaster in the underworld, Master says, "Me Master," and introduces himself, and then Max says, "Me Max," and does the same. That's it.
Yeah, right, only one time. And then later on he's thought to be the pilot from the Viewmaster. Captain Walker from the Viewmaster.
So I guess the biggest addition to the cast is obviously Tina Turner herself. She plays, as I said, Auntie Entity. I don't know if Entity's ever actually mentioned.
No, she's referred to as Auntie a lot. Maybe it's at some point it's Auntie Entity.
But that's her official name.
Yeah.
So she's like this ruthless, determined ruler of Bartertown. She's glamorous. She's like this Amazon-like figure who recognises a strength of character in Max and hopes to exploit him in order to gain sole control of Bartertown from Master. And despite her brutality and Bartertown's chaos, Entity is an intelligent, cultured woman who holds a hope of one day rebuilding society to its former glory. What do you think of this character, and what do you think of her performance?
It's a strange addition, I must admit. And choosing Tina Turner in that role, I mean... I was 5 when this came out, so I can't remember how big she was at the time. I would have thought her glory days would have been behind her by then.
1985, this is the peak of her solo powers.
Right.
We didn't need another hero, obviously, and then What's Love Got to Do With It came out around now.
Private Dancer.
She had a big hit. And
a couple of Tina Turner fans here, I'm sorry, I stand corrected.
And she'd done a fair bit of acting around this time as well. She'd done, a few feature film performances as well.
She was acting in this as well, okay.
Yeah, she was. Oh, actually, let me revise what I just said. She hadn't really done any acting before this.
I was trying to think of what else she's been in.
She was in. You settled down. She was in Tommy in '75. She was in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in '78, which is the horrible Bee Gees Peter Frampton film. Right. And then she did Last Action Hero after this, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was the tiny cameo.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. And it was
That's it.
But having said all that, she's great. I think she really works in this. I think she really brings a different flavour to the films, because you're so used to seeing these kind of, almost radioactive kind of ugly humans, and then she's this sassy kind of different personality that brings a life to the film.
Yeah, Miller says that they needed someone whose vitality and intelligence would make her control over Bartertown credible, and she had to sort of be a positive character rather than a conventional evil baddie, I suppose.
I thought she was quite good in this.
I think she's great in this.
She is.
You were just hanging shit on her, though. Look at you.
I was. She's just been Tina Turner. She's not acting.
Yeah.
She's been Tina Turner, but she does at points in the film look like she's a little bit worried to be
Do you know
there.
how many episodes you've said that in, Matt? Bill Murray's just playing Bill Murray. Who else have you said? Other actors?
I wouldn't say a lot of those people who are... Like, I think Laurence Olivier, when you say an actor, not Bill Murray or Tina Turner.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, you're talking about a movie star versus a great actor.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with being a movie star. We've
Not at all.
talked about that before as well. Yeah. Bruce Spence. Let's talk about Bruce Spence quickly.
Jebediah the pilot?
Yeah. Deep into the third act, I still wasn't sure if he was supposed to be the same character out of Mad
It's
Max 2
weird,
or not.
isn't it? Really weird.
There's enough in common with the pilot from Mad Max 2, but there's enough different for you to think, is it the same guy? And it is the same guy. We find that out.
It is the same guy.
Yeah, but there's that moment in the chase when they're down, it's in Cooper Pedy, where they're
He's not.
But when they're underground and he runs past him and Bruce Spence is sitting in bed, they look at each other and Bruce Spence looks at him and goes, you, and Mad Max looks back and goes, you. But are they referring to the...
No, I don't. You see, I don't think that sells that in this. So I was hoping that's what it meant, but even at the start...
But they haven't seen each other up until then. They haven't seen each other in the whole film.
He saw him in the when he got taken in. He was watching...
Okay, so
Mad
it
Max
could just be a reference to
and
that.
you're kind of like, he recognises him, he's going to save him, or something like that. But it's just some fleeting.
But
glances.
why would Max recognise Bruce Spence?
None of them recognise fucking Tina Turner. So I mean,
no, that's bizarre. No, but Max. Well, not yeah. Max and Jebediah recognise each other, and I get what you're saying. Jebediah may just recognise him from the Thunderdome, but why would Max recognise him?
I've got a quote from Spence himself, which might sort of describe a little bit
Let's
better.
refer to Australian legend from New Zealand, Bruce Spence.
They were well into the shoot when they offered me a part described as not the gyro captain, but kind of like the gyro captain. They said there's kind of a reflection of him and that they were having difficulty casting the role, so they thought to themselves, why not Bruce?
Yeah, right.
And then they used
So it's
him
not
again.
supposed to be, or it could be, or it's up to you. Because it makes sense the kid could be the...
From what I gathered...
Because he left with that young blonde girl, so they could have had a kid.
The reading I've been doing, he's not. They had an opportunity to bring Bruce Spence back, and
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah.
But I don't like this because it's too similar.
Confusing. For all intents and purposes, the gyro captain dies in Mad Max 2.
Yeah.
He gets blown out of the air, the gyrocopter explodes.
No, he's at the end, though. Remember, he's in the bus at the end. He's driving.
Is he on the bus?
He's taking,
Oh, he is too.
He's like the
so
new
he survives the crash.
leader.
he's the new.
So even more confusing
It's
because
more
They
confusing.
should have decided yes or no, and the movie doesn't really reflect that.
The thing is,
so-
it's fine if he's the gyro captain.
yeah,
There's no problems
It
with
would have
that.
been more comical with that
Yeah.
moment where they go, like it should have been a reference to the second film. But
Yeah.
that's the thing.
I trained this snake, I'm going to eat it. Just something.
Yeah.
Just give us
the
something.
mindsetting is he's not.
yeah,
So
I think
that's
yeah,
just confusing.
completely.
You know
different.
what? Despite what Bruce Spence says and Miller, I'm just going to say he is the gyro captain. I don't care.
Just accept it.
I'm just going to say
And
it.
it's great having him back. I must
Yeah.
admit, despite all that, it's just he is a part of that world. And
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, it is nice to have him back.
Frank Thring.
Frank Thring's worth talking about. I don't know how well
Plays
you
the
guys... He plays the collector. I don't know how well you guys know Frank Thring's work, but he's one of the first Australian actors to make it in Hollywood, and he was in all these great epic films, kind of in the 40s and 50s. Anything that was set in Athens or anything set in the Bible era, anything that involved
With a
robes
toga.
or a toga, he was in it. He was in the Ten Commandments.
Animal House, I believe, was it? No.
A small cameo, maybe. And he still spent a lot of time in Australia, and he appeared in a lot of Australian TV shows and things throughout that period as well. And we don't have enough time to go into it right now, but just some amazing stories about this guy. He's an absolute legend in Australian entertainment, and he's just the most eccentric, amazing man you've ever met. And in this film, because he is such a larger-than-life character in real life, in this film I found him incredible. I was worried, knowing more about Frank Thring as an adult than I did as a kid. I was worried watching this film that he was going to be a bit too camp and a bit too ridiculous. But he is fucking amazing in this film. He's so believable and convincing and such a powerhouse in those scenes. Really props up Tina Turner at times as well, literally and figuratively. And yeah, I think he's amazing. It's so great that he's in this film.
He didn't have a huge impact for me. I mean, I thought he was solid and minimalist in his performance. Just he kind of really had a presence, but it didn't have a lot to do in terms of the plot. I didn't think, but some nice moments. Like I love that shot of him. I mean, he doesn't really have much emotional range in this film. It's pretty much just
no, he doesn't. It's a one note.
But there's that shot at the end when Barterdown's going to hell, and it's just him just slumped over and just looking the same as he has in the rest of the film, but slightly more sad. And I thought that was quite powerful.
Oh, well, the only thing I would say is I really did like his character. And I think with the new Mad Max film that we've got, that world that we see with that type of character is what they should have stuck with for that film. So, like with the new film, we've got that little story happening around with the chase across the desert, and it's maintained within that world. And you just kind of feel like if Mad Max 3 had that and not gone to the children place, this film could have been not only a lot better, but we could have had Mad Max 4 a lot sooner. Like I think, all these different stories within that world would have been really cool. But I guess in light of what happened with his friend dying and obviously this not doing as well as they hoped,
you feel like almost the change was. It was like a shell shock moment for the filmmakers. Like they couldn't do all the big ideas that they had, and this tragedy maybe that took them away to the kids' story, so they could just kind of have this focused kind of location where they could do this and make the film still work and shoot something. It just feels like it's like they're mourning while they're shooting that sequence.
It's the best looking film of the three, though, and possibly even the four.
Well, it's I think it's the grandest, smoothest looking.
Like some shot, like that shot with the plane when all the kids are just stood on it, and
and a huge
setting. It looks fantastic.
The opening shot, which is like from the air, just looking down. It's a massive aerial shot.
Bros, can we continue with the music theme and talk about
Angry Anderson? Wow.
Iron Bar.
Wow. He's just shit, isn't he?
I thought he was great.
I don't know how long you could power Bartertown off his performance, but I reckon a couple of years.
Look at me is pretty much what he's trying to...
he's not the only little man in this film, but he is the angriest, isn't he? He
might be short, but he's a fierce little warrior.
He's a fierce little warrior, yeah. And in that final sequence, he survives, doesn't he? You can't kill this little fucker, can you? He just keeps going and going. It's bizarre casting Angry Anderson in this film because he's not known for his acting by any means. Well, Matt, what did you quite like?
Well, when I first saw this film, I didn't know who Angry Anderson is because I don't think most people do outside of Australia. So seeing it this time, I was watching it going, that's Angry Anderson. And it just kind of, like I was waiting for Alf to turn up after that and Aggro, just all the Australian angry people in one film, but it didn't happen. But I thought he was all right. I thought he was pretty funny.
Because there's a certain kind of villain in these films, isn't there? And you always need an over-the-top villain in a Mad Max film. And he brings that. I mean, he's nowhere near as good as Wes from the second one.
And his fame now makes more sense to me as well after seeing that film because it's definitely not his music.
Did you say
It's just one of those things, though, where it's like every now and then he gets something will happen to him. You're like, okay, he's dead, and then he pops back up again. You're like, well, how long? How many times? He's the what do you call? He's the Jason of this film. He just keeps going.
Black at one stage as well. For some reason.
He gets.
I don't know what that's for. Maybe it was a hey, it's Saturday appearance or something like that. But,
he comes straight off the set, off Red Faces.
Yeah.
He didn't do another feature film for 17 years after this, by the way. So
what was the follow-up?
Oh, I don't care. Hang on, let me have a look. I just closed it.
Rose Tattoo, The Reunion.
He did. That's right. He was in Finding Joy in 2002.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's there's a fair gap there.
Are there any members of the supporting cast that you guys want to?
There's a couple. Angelo Rosito, who plays Master. He's one of the busiest little people in Hollywood that didn't appear in The Wizard of Oz. He was in Todd Browning's Freaks. He was in The Corpse Vanishes with Bela Lugosi. Something Wicked This Way Comes in 83 as well. Like, this guy's been in... It was in like 100 films or something.
Freaks, wow.
88... Yeah, Freaks. How's that?
Yeah.
88 films dating back to 1927 was
Holy
his
moly.
film debut.
Wow.
He passed away in 1991 at the age of 83. This guy's an absolute legend. And I think in this film, he does the full gamut of being quite a believable, realistic kind of performance, but he does these really big scenes as well of kind of the campy kind of elements. And he's just amazing in this film.
Well, he changes, doesn't he? Like, he's the villain, and then he's this little helpless man. Who,
I know.
Nah, as soon as Blaster gets killed, he changes completely.
But you feel like you hate him, and then you feel for him. You're worried for his life near the end of the film.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing.
Speaking about Blaster, I did kind of want Blaster's helmet to be removed and it reveal the guy Bo from Mad Max.
Yes,
that kind of seemed the obvious. Like, I knew it was going to be someone who had some kind of mental disability or whatever. That was the obvious reveal.
Yeah.
Or a childlike adult or whatever that.
That would have been really good.
But it would have made sense to have Bo from the
first film,
who plays the big goofy kind of guy on the farm towards the end of Mad Max.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. So that was kind of... And then what they did do is have a really awkward cut with a guy who obviously has Down syndrome, who obviously wasn't in the Thunderdome, and they were kind of cutting between the two shots, which was a bit awkward. The other one, Robert Grubb, I wanted to mention, who plays Pig Killer, who was in The Flying Doctors around the same time. And he played a very serious, intelligent doctor in that, and he's just the goofiest, wackiest nutbar. And I think he's great in this film.
The mechanic as well, I thought was great. The guy with the bowl on his head and the kind of S&M gear that he's wearing throughout the whole thing. He added a bit of humour to it. I thought he was really good value.
And George Spartles, who played Blackfinger, who was in Neighbours for years and years as well.
Can I give a shout out to Justine Clark?
Yeah, a very young Justine Clark.
Very, very. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I was like, it's Justine Clark, because I've actually seen her live in concert.
With your children?
With my daughter, when she was little. It was ended up being one of the stranger moments of my life. At the end, she invited all the children onto the stage, and I was just there with my little girl. So I said, "Yeah, go on, you go up." She ran up onto the stage, and I've got bad eyesight, and people can't see I've got glasses on, but I was stood at the back, and all of a sudden my daughter appears right at the front of all these kids, and she stood with Justine Clark. And I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. So I pulled out my Nokia and I started taking photos of it. I'm just smiling, taking photos of my little girl up with Justine Clark to send back to her mum. And then I feel this little tug on my jeans and look down, and it was my daughter who stood next to me. And I'm like, looking at the girl that's on the stage, looking at my daughter. So for 10 minutes, I was really, looked really creepy taking photos of
someone else's daughter. Yeah.
And smiling and it's just great.
I'm so proud of my other daughter.
And sending the pictures to my wife. But lucky, because the Nokia pictures are so crap, my
she didn't know either.
She didn't know, and my daughter didn't say anything, so she just figures, and my wife doesn't listen.
So now you
just she just figures, that she was up there with
on your daughter's 21st. You'll just pull them out and say, "Remember when you were next to Justine Clark? That was a thing. That happened. that happened. That was real." This is Justine Clark's feature film debut as well, and she's great as one of the kids. She's one of the better performers amongst the kids.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Do you guys have a favourite scene from this movie?
The Thunderdome.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
The
Thunderdome
is really good. I mean, and the great thing about the Thunder, it's influenced all pop culture. It's one of these great things. I mean, I guess it's that stupid, proud Australian moment when, you see us reflected in Hollywood. But, I mean, this has been referenced in The Simpsons. It's been referenced in pop culture, the whole width and breadth of it. So it's kind of nice. But it is a really nice sequence.
Yeah.
And you kind of... It's one of those sequences, I guess, which is what you want to achieve in a film where once it's over, you kind of want it to go back there. You kind of want another...
Yeah.
It would have been nice if they had a Thunderdome fight to set up the Thunderdome just so we could see more of the Thunderdome. It's a really nice moment. Yeah.
And there's no cars in that sequence, which is a refreshing change from Mad Max.
Just talking about the cast just quickly. Where is the Interceptor? Why is there no Interceptor in this film? It's ridiculous.
It's a bad omission.
You've got to have the Interceptor.
It's not on the caravan in the back with the camels? Is it there? Or
no. It's not there. The monkey is.
It's not covered in a zebra or cow hide.
I thought
it was
even if it is, why are they presenting it like that?
I was hoping the kids had the Interceptor. I was hoping that was going to be their big reveal or a big part of their reveal.
Cool. Yeah,
they had Malaysia Airlines MH370.
They did.
Damn it, Brose, you should have written this bloody film. It would have been a much better film.
Well, I was there with the kids in that moment. I'm like, oh, they're going to reveal the Interceptor. This is great. Nah, okay. And that would have been a great way to end.
And then he would have gone, actually, on second thought, I am Captain Walker. Look at that back.
But yeah, no Interceptor's a real big omission, and I think you can feel it in this film as well.
So we all just agree that the Thunderdome scene is the best scene in the film?
That is by far the best scene.
I wanted him and Tina Turner to fight in it at the end. I was hoping that's where it was going. Yeah, amazing.
Did you guys notice on the Thunderdome wheel what the different outcomes were? Have you guys ever checked them out?
Stuff like, yeah, cool.
Death, hard labour, acquittal, gulag, auntie's choice, spin again, forfeit goods, underworld, amputation, life imprisonment.
Get out of jail free? No, that was one of the options.
I love how they have you break the deal, You spin the wheel. Is that what it is? Yeah. Like, they have like little rhyming things for anything that happens in that town, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That guy, I remember who you're talking about. He kind of looks like Dracula for some reason, but he's
a bit like the guy out of Despicable Me or something. Just shoulders.
He was great, very
so good, so
theatrical, and the showman.
Do you guys know what gulag is? Like that's the one that Max spins, right?
Yeah, that's what he gets. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you guys actually know what it is?
Sounds like a delicious dish from Eastern Europe.
Isn't that mean you're going to get a large mask put on your head and sent on a horse backwards? Is it?
So,
into a bad plot point in the film?
Many people tend to think of a gulag as being a Soviet forced labor camp that existed during the era of communism in the Soviet Union in the 1900s. However, the actual term itself refers to the government organization that oversaw the deportation and housing of political prisoners sent to those camps. In the context of this film and Max's sentencing, Auntie and her people are using the term gulag to refer to exile, the desert, hence the Mardi Gras costume head being placed over Max's head while he's tied to a horse that they release into the desert. Auntie was probably banking on the idea that Max would die of thirst and dehydration in the desert and she'd be rid of him.
So they should have just put exile there.
Instead of
gulag. It would have been easier.
Yeah. And I the big Mardi Gras head surely just means stuntman on horse, doesn't it? Isn't that what that means?
Mel Gibson was in LA on that day.
Exactly. As soon as you cover up the star's face, it means stuntman doing it, doesn't it?
There's a real Thunderdome, Brose. Did you know about this?
Wow.
At the Burning Man Festival.
Oh, wow. What do they do? Yeah, I know the Burning Man Festival. What do they do in the Thunderdome at Burning Man?
There's a camp called Death Guild that builds its own Road Warrior-style cars and holds nightly battles in its own Thunderdome.
Thunderdome is also what I call the toilet after I've had a curry, so... Okay.
One man enters.
Same thing.
One man leaves.
Everybody leaves.
One man enters. One man leaves slightly lighter. I think
that sounds like a better script, if I'm honest.
That is the same way the script for this was written. Yeah.
What do you guys think prompts Max to help the kids after years of being this shell of a man?
I don't know. It just has to go that way, doesn't it?
I think I read it as they wanted to make a film about kids, and they just chucked Max in, like you were saying in the last Mad Max. I think that's completely. He's just been wedged in there. Yeah, I don't think he'd hang around, and I don't think they'd accept him so quickly. So I mean, even Robin Williams and Hook has a harder time than Max does getting accepted. You know,
well, I guess the best explanation is the fact that in one of the original scripts there was a sort of a scene cut where Max falls asleep and wakes up after having dreamt of his wife, son, and partner Goose. I guess it's just more humanity, a bit of a reminder of his past or something that sort of made him sort of become a little bit more like this, I guess.
I don't think they could put that in, though, because like we were saying, you've got I forgot his name, Bruce Spence, his character.
Jebediah.
Yeah, if you're going to start tying things back to the old Mad Max films, that would have to link as well. But I think they've obviously just, apart from him saying his name's Max... does he even have the brace on his leg in this one? I can't remember.
He does, yeah.
And it's not until the moment in the gully with the kids that he resembles Max's costume as well. He's finally got the shoulder pads obvious because he wears that big robe and stuff over the top.
And the mullet covering everything up.
Yeah, the mullet covers everything.
So did you think that Auntie was some sort of law enforcement officer like Max himself?
In a past life or something?
No, because she says to him at the end, you know, the line, well, ain't we a pair, at the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
Is that how you sort of read that?
No, I didn't read it like that. I just think she's kind of thought that they were, for some reason, on a similar wavelength.
Yeah, it was like an admiration of some...
Of a warrior.
Definitely. She's the warrior woman, he's the warrior man.
Yeah, but just leave him for dead, I guess, or let him just go on his own way.
You'd be kind of annoyed if you were one of her henchmen, wouldn't you? Be driving along that way and kind of putting your ass on the line, and then you just turn back.
Let's get to some trivia from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. The sandstorm at the end of the film was real, and a camera plane actually did fly into it for some of the shots. The storm in its entirety hit the crew in the desert, forcing them to ride it out in their cars and wherever they could find cover.
Wow.
Where was that desert scene shot?
Is that Cooper Pedy, or is it?
Actually, is that with all the sand and stuff? That's actually how
sure
desert is up there, is it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that Max's eyes are different? The pupil in his left eye is permanently dilated. This is a nod to Mad Max 2, when his car is forced off the road by Wes and Max crashes. He suffers a severe injury to, among other body parts, his left eye. The disparity is easy to see in close-ups and very easy to see on the Blu-ray version as well, Andrew. In the regular version, it's most prominent when Max first looks down on the Thunderdome. So this is a little bit of real attention to detail, I guess.
Yeah, nice little nods that they've done throughout all the films where they do link it back and maintain the continuity of the character, which is great.
Yep. The film was, I guess, unsurprisingly intended to be the final chapter of the Mad Max series, with Mel Gibson bowing out of the role of Max and ending, and the film obviously ends with Max regaining his humanity.
He's walking off into the sunset. Yeah.
I guess nothing ever ends these days, does it?
No.
So, I don't know, that probably was what they were thinking at the end of that film. That probably was.
Well, I like, because the fourth film has been in production for so many years, like it's...
Yeah, a very long time.
It feels like maybe not. Maybe George Miller, got the hunger because he didn't quite nail the third one and he wanted to do a proper version of the fourth one, but thank God he did.
Feels like that.
The fourth one's great.
With all the pigs in this film as well, Brose, did you sort of get any foreshadowing of Babe?
I did. I was thinking Babe when I saw all those pigs. Yeah. I mean, obviously Miller has some type of interest in pigs. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't know where the penguins came from for Happy Feet, but definitely there was a bit of a Babe pig in Shit City feel to this. So.
There's a Babe sequel I'd like to see.
There we go. Babe in Bartertown. Stop your bloody singing, pig, and start shitting.
One penguin enters. And that's menacing stuff.
So we'll talk about the home releases of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Such an 80s line, that one, the home release. I haven't heard that one for years.
Home video.
DVD
now on home video, yeah.
That's it.
Coming soon.
Doesn't sound kind of dated, doesn't it?
To home video.
2003 DVD, 2013 Blu-ray release. Really good video and audio quality. The movie looks and sounds great. Doesn't have anything other than the trailer on it, though.
Yeah, sadly.
Lackluster in regards to features, and we don't like these ones, bro.
You could explain why I don't own it, then. So what you're saying is...
you don't own the Mad Max series?
No, I don't own the Mad Max series. Oh, I should get on... No, I've got Mad Max 1 and 2. Sorry, I don't have 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it'd be really interesting to see how they shot out there, and there's a lot of models and effects and...
Yeah, this film in general is underrepresented, I think. Like, there's got to be a making of this somewhere. It would have been shown on Australian TV.
No commentary, bro?
There's no commentary.
I remember having when they had those making of magazines that came out at the time of the release. I had that, and it was fascinating, pouring through that, because it had all the model makers and went through the whole pre-production and posts of the film. And
so you feel it's quite a missed opportunity with this one?
Well, it's one of the more epic Australian genre films that we've made. So
there'd have to be footage too. There'd have to be behind-the-scenes footage. Yeah,
what they really missed out on is the music videos to the Tina Turner songs.
Yeah, at least put those in.
2 songs in it.
Yeah,
that must be a licensing thing then.
I don't know. The songs in the film. It's bizarre.
That opening credit sequence reminds me of Labyrinth.
Oh yeah.
Did that happen for anyone else? You know how they've got like the David Bowie song just over like the credits. It's a similar font, everything. Like I think Labyrinth was a year after this one, but having a pop star in your film seemed to be the way to go back, like at this period of time, anyway. And
you picked up the trilogy set, didn't you, Andrew? So I guess it's just sort of the third one with because the first 2 are represented quite well on Blu-ray, aren't they? With features. Well, the first one's a bit crappy.
The first one has all the text.
Yeah, not a lot of great stuff on there.
Yeah,
the second one's got a commentary which you've listened to.
Yeah, that's really good.
You want a commentary on the third one at least. That would be really interesting. But
well, it'd be interesting to hear even a retrospective for the Blu-ray, getting Miller and Semler back together and getting.
I honestly thought they would do that because of Fury Road. They would do some big re-release, and maybe when the fourth one comes out, they will. But
maybe there's a quadrilogy box set. Is that a word? Quadrilogy.
In Blu-ray world, it is.
In the Blu-ray and DVD world, they invented
quadrilogy.
Yeah, so.
Nice.
Andrew, let's talk about the music in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Maurice Jarre.
Replacing Brian May, of course, who composed the music for the first 2 films. What do you think of his work in this one?
It's, again, like the rest of the film, huge, epic, more of an epic scale of score. There's a larger orchestra, there's a lot more elements at work here, and Maurice Jarre is a legend of film music.
What else has he done?
Well, Lawrence of Arabia is the big one, I guess. He's done lots of David Lean's films, Ryan's Daughter, and in the 80s, he kind of went electronic and did lots of really minimal synthesizer music. So it was an interesting phase for him because he did films like Witness, which is a really interesting score. He did Fatal Attraction, which is really sparse and kind of creepy. And then, in the middle of that, he was asked to do this score, and it's this massive classic orchestral score. So it's almost like he went back to his roots, and it's one of his best works, I think. It's just really thematic and exciting, and it maintains the sound that Brian May created for the first two films. It has that sense of humour about it.
Yeah, this more so than Mad Max 2. There are a couple of nice moments in Thunderdome where it does kind of go back to Mad Max.
Yeah,
there are a couple of the more clowny, kind of comical, kind of musical moments.
Very Australian, actually,
which work really well.
Yeah,
it's those moments really excited me.
Again, the saxophone with the when they had the pigs and shit, and it's just this kind of sleazy saxophone line, which really adds to the humour of that moment, and he nails that. And there's the great theme for Bartertown, which is just this clunking rhythmic kind of thing, which is, I remember as a kid, it was just this kind of creepy little jaunty theme for the town and the creeps in it. So that was really good. And then there's a heroic theme for Max, which is really, I think, needed at this point, and that's woven throughout the film in a really nice way.
Yeah, Brian May didn't ever give him a theme specifically, did he?
No, it was just kind of little horn blasts here and there, which worked nicely. But this score is certainly a notch above. I mean, no disrespect to Brian May, and it's clear that because of the budget, they wanted a bigger sound. So he certainly does that.
I guess the studio may have had something to say.
Yeah.
At this point, potentially. I don't know, but there's a chance.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, they have been mentioned a few times, but the film, of course, also features two songs performed by star Tina Turner.
Yes.
We Don't Need Another Hero, brackets Thunderdome, and also One of the Living, with that latter one replacing Jar's opening titles music.
Yes. Yeah.
It happened a lot in the 80s, didn't it?
Yeah, well, it's almost like scores were getting a little bit old school, and they wanted to just try and modernise it a little bit, which, I think it kind of works. That song is quite cool. I really like One of the Living. It's a good song.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about what are your general feelings about these songs?
I think they're great. I think they could have been horrendous and just totally not fit with the film. I'm sure a lot of Mad Max purists would still think that, but I don't know. I grew up to the film, and it didn't affect me in any way. I just sort of added a flavour to it, which is really interesting and different.
Yeah, I was talking the song up before we started recording today, Brose.
Oh, Adam loves this song. It's all he listens to now is just We Don't Need Another Hero over and over and over again.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so 80s, isn't it? It's big drums and...
Fortunately, he only played in the end credits as well.
Yeah, it's another one of those weird songs. Well, yeah, it's so important. But I guess the great thing about that song was an important element of the marketing of the film.
Yeah, definitely.
And any of the success that the film had depended largely on that.
I would say almost, not entirely, but
a big element of it.
Massive
success.
Element. Massive, because the music video...
became iconic.
You remember it. You remember when it came out, and it was just, linked to the film.
Now, back in 1985, there was the first soundtrack release of this movie. Just like 6 tracks. It's interesting, isn't it? It's got We Don't Need Another Hero and One of the Living. And then it's got an instrumental version of We Don't Need Another Hero.
Stretching out the track listing, maybe?
And then there's like 3 tracks.
Maurice Jarre's score.
Jarre's score, yeah. So have you got this? Have you heard this?
Yeah, and it's a good, if you wanted to get the flavour of the film, it's a good selection. You get all the strong points in the film. So it's a good little suite of score. But then, over the years, they have re-released the score as its own release. So it's a 2 CD set. So if you're right into it, then you can get pretty much everything that was...
Deluxe edition.
Yeah, it goes through there. And, it's interesting because there's a lot of really subtle layers in the score. There's lots of... even didgeridoo gets a little kind of subtle workout, and there's a real atmospheric quality to it. It's Tadlow was the company that released it in 2010, I think. So if you're keen, check it out.
Nice. Just quickly, one more thing on We Need Another Hero. The song was a very successful single.
It was a massive hit.
Yeah,
massive hit, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the alternative versions or deleted scenes from this film. Apparently 2 scenes were cut from the film to bring down the running time. In the first, Max dreams of his murdered wife and son, which we mentioned before, and he wakes up and cries. He realises he's become just as bad as the animals he used to hunt down as a cop. Probably a good omission when you think about it. I don't think that would have added anything.
No, the mystery is what you love about Max. You don't need to know too much.
Cry.
No.
Yeah.
He's a hard Aussie man.
And the other is Max takes a dying gecko to the top of a sand dune at night, sees the lights of Bartertown, and tells him that they've reached Tomorrowland. And a few seconds of this scene are included in the music video for Turner's We Don't Need Another Hero, apparently.
A gecko. Well, that would explain the mad part, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be
mad. Yeah. Be quite fitting.
Sad Max.
Sad Max.
Yeah.
Sad sacks.
No collectibles or anything?
There are no collectibles, but if you've got the action figures from Mad Max 1 and 2 and you want to add Iron Bar into your collection, just get the Rancor Keeper from Star Wars. And that can be your Angry Anderson figure. And a little known fact here, bit of trivia, the Rancor Keeper action figure is the same height as Angry Anderson. So that's my advice for collectibles. But there are no collectibles for this at this stage. There are no 12-inch figures. There are no 6-inch figures. There's obviously no Interceptor from this film. The book, the novel adaptation of this film you can get that I mentioned in Mad Max 2, and that's pretty much it. The Tina Turner singles and the LP version is collectible now, but yeah, there's really nothing for this film, which I find bizarre. There's a lot for the second film, not much for the first, but I don't know, you just think, especially in the days of Hot Toys, you'd think this collectibles for this would make sense. Perhaps it comes back to who owns the merchandising rights and how that was done at the time.
A Master Blaster would be pretty cool.
How good would a Master Blaster figure be? It'd be amazing, especially
Or a
in the
Thunderdome,
12-inch.
like a Thunderdome set that you could play.
They've really missed
it. I mean, there were some of the toys I talked about in Mad Max 2 in terms of the Matchbox toys and the Tonka toys that were spin-offs came out around this time, but they were still more based off and more ripping off Mad Max 2 than Mad Max 3. So, yeah, there's not much else.
There's we haven't discussed it, but the actual costumes and cars in this film are really cool. Like the design goes up a notch.
Yeah, you don't get to see much though.
No, well, the punks with the massive mohawks, the bad guys, they're fascinating. They're really interesting characters with the kind of gas masks on. And
the other thing worth mentioning too is, of course, professional wrestlers, the Road Warriors, who took their name from the first Mad Max film, took their costumes from this film. The big American football style shoulder pads are directly taken from Beyond Thunderdome, and they popped up around this time as well. So
these costumes are looked at more in Fury Road as well, aren't they? Really, that's kind of like even the lad with the white makeup and the black eyes. Like that's a big part of that film. And
you wonder if that's like linked.
Yeah, I don't know how. And we're forgetting the monkey as well. I mean,
yeah, we haven't talked much about the monkey.
The monkey, Abu from Aladdin. It's obviously been taken from that monk. Anyway,
I heard the only reason Mel Gibson agreed to work with the monkey is that, well, it's a rhesus monkey, but he thought it was a racist monkey, so he was quite happy. But
makes sense.
Yeah, apparently not.
Nicely worked in there. In regards to the awards for Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, no Academy Awards or nominations. There was a Golden Globe nomination, Brose, Best Original Song.
Of course, Tina Turner.
Or We Don't Need Another Hero.
Yeah.
So that's significant.
Interestingly, the instrumental version was the one that got It's not true.
And the Satins.
Yeah, how'd it go in the Satins?
Yeah, 4 nominations. Best Science Fiction Film.
Yep.
Best Director. Best Writing and Best Costumes.
Well, writing's a long shot, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, writing's probably the one in which you sort of go, I don't know about that. But the other ones, costumes definitely.
Costumes are amazing in this, yeah.
Yep. So the Rotten Tomatoes website certifies this film fresh with a score of 81%.
Wow, that's quite high, I would have thought.
Not many reviews, but 38 positive and 9 negative, still 81% is pretty high. And IMDb, 6.2 out of 10.
Probably pretty close, I reckon.
It should be.
It's no Shawshank Redemption.
That's correct. Yeah. It's a completely different plot, for starters.
Apparently Morgan Freeman was going to do a voiceover over it.
Similar amounts of shit, though.
Good shit
Critical
quantity.
reaction to the film was generally positive, although reviewers were mixed regarding whether they considered the film the highest or lowest point of the Mad Max trilogy. Most of the criticism was focused on the children in the second half of the film, who many felt were too similar to the Lost Boys from the story of Peter Pan. Film critic Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times called Thunderdome the first really original movie idea about how to stage a fight since we got the first karate movies, and praised the fight between Max and Blaster as one of the great creative action scenes in the movies. Ebert awarded the film 4 stars out of 4.
Wow.
And later placed the film on his list of the 10 best pictures of 1985. Variety wrote that the film opens strong and has good acting from Gibson, Turner and the children. Despite mostly positive reviews from critics, some fans of the series have criticised the film for being more Hollywoodized and containing a lighter tone than the previous installments. So I guess that brings us nicely, Brose, into our traditional 5-star review system.
It does indeed.
So, with Andrew returning today, I'm going to be starting with...
Oh, sorry, I was ready to give my review, but Andrew's back.
No.
I'm so used to him not being here.
It's the way it works.
Wow.
When I return, I am first up. That's in my contract.
It's in your contract. Wow, I want to get that contract where I don't have to turn up for the shit films. Can I get that?
What did Andrew say?
Yeah, I want the Andrew contract where I don't have to be here for Jurassic Park or Terminator sequels that I don't want to have to watch.
I was sick those days. I think you need to just be careful.
Sick of substandard sequels, I think, is what you were.
You know, in the Terminator Salvation episode, we did give you a review, because you know how you wrote a text message to me and you said, just say one thing for me, it's shit.
Yeah.
And that's in the episode. I said, Andrew's review comes in via text message, it's shit.
That's all I needed to say.
Yeah. Anyway.
Via satellite.
This film, Andrew.
This film, certainly not shit. I really enjoy it. I think it's gotten better for me over the years. Yeah, I think they're trying something different with this film, and I appreciate that. As they said, that they can't just do another car chase, which they did at the end in the third act anyway. But you know, they try something different with the kids and with Thunderdome, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. But having said that, it's still very watchable, and I'll return to it every now and again and enjoy it. George Miller's a great filmmaker, and yeah, it's an ambitious genre film for us in Australian history. So I would say it adds to the other three films in a strong way. So I'd give it 3.5 out of 5.
Good one, Brose.
Oh, interesting. I'm going to give it. Let's give it a solid 3 stars. Look, the script for this is awful. It was badly put together. It's shoehorned elements into that don't belong. There's no relationship between the two narratives except Max. But Mel Gibson is really good in it. He's solid. There's some really good cues to what Mel Gibson's career was going to become, right up until the racial rant to a police officer. There's enough good in this that you'll enjoy it. I really enjoyed watching it. I got frustrated at the weaker moments, but it's a good, solid film. And just that Thunderdome fight, the chase sequence at the end, there's enough good here to enjoy it. So 3 stars, definitely recommend it. Have a look at it. And look at it now. If you've just seen Fury Road, then it's worth going back and looking Mad Max 1 to 3. And there's no reason to skip Thunderdome, I wouldn't have thought. It's not bad enough that you would skip it. So definitely 3 out of 5. It's a good, solid film, and check it out if you haven't already.
Thanks, Brose. Matt?
Yeah, I'm gonna give Brose's Thunderdome 5 stars. I went into the bathroom after him. Well done, sir. I'm going to give this Thunderdome... do you know what? When I saw this originally, I really didn't think it was very good, but this time I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. Like Brose just said, the crap bits are crap. But I guess because I'm older and more forgiving, I have kids and they fuck up every day. But I still love them. And I'm going to say, they do. We've been playing Mario Brothers, and it's just so frustrating watching kids trying to do the old...
Trying to jump over the cliffs.
Yeah, it's just, the old platform games. I just can't do it.
Keep running into the Goombas.
Exactly. Yeah. But I'm going to give it 3 stars.
Yeah.
I was thinking 2.5 when I came here, but I've enjoyed talking about it. I enjoyed watching it. 3 stars.
Good one.
Adam, how do you feel about Beyond Thunderdome?
Now I'm going to come in at the end here. Look, I think it's a really thought-provoking film. It has a really good visual texture. It's grown with age as well, and it reveals additional layers on subsequent viewings. But I got to be completely honest about how I feel about it in comparison to the others. Everything I really loved about the first 2 and what I really like about Fury Road as well, I think is really missing in this 3rd installment. It's definitely the weakest of the quadrilogy, I guess you could say. I don't really know why they changed the entire structure of the series, as well as the Max character. So Mel Gibson sort of plays Max as a quiet and antisocial character in Mad Max 2. Here he seems to enjoy chatting with others and sort of transforms himself into a completely different person, I find as well in parts. It also lacks some of the spectacular choreographed vehicle chases that the previous films had, except for the last 15 minutes, I guess. It isn't until that time that I sort of got excited, I guess. I have a real problem with this movie. End of the Thunderdome sequence before the chase sequence at the end.
Yeah, that's the big gap. That's where the film will let you down.
And it does, yeah.
And a bit like Matt said earlier, it does have that never-ending story feel to it all of a sudden, or it gets really kiddie and it lets you down.
It's divided into two separate films on occasions. It's unfortunate because I really like George Miller's take on this post-apocalyptic world. I think it's really well designed and really well done. It felt like, as I said, like two films occasionally, and I just didn't feel that it sort of belonged together, and it was sort of an incoherent turn from the previous Mad Max films. But I definitely still give the film credit for trying to do something completely different, even though it doesn't completely pull that off, in my opinion. So I guess what I'm saying is, 2.5 stars, but I actually can't recommend it. If people want to go watch Mad Max films who haven't seen any of them, I'd recommend the other 3.
1, 2, and 4.
Bit of a spoiler for Fury Road there, but in my opinion, 1, 2, and 4. If you want to go, I think that you can skip this one personally. So that's
fair enough.
That's fair enough. That's definitely fair. The weak moments in this film will really let you down, but if you can forgive those, and if you go on with low expectations for those, then I think you'd enjoy.
There's some meat in there that you can really enjoy.
Definitely.
I think it's a missed opportunity. I think if they'd done something like, is it the Fistful of Dollars, where the guy rolls into town and maybe like he played off the two parties, Tina Turner against, they could have done
a little bit more intelligent.
It had been done before, but something just stay in that town.
There's also
a chase at the end.
There's also a Blade Runner-ness about the Bartertown world as well, which is never fully explored. It's a post-apocalyptic rundown Blade Runner, but it's got some of those elements, the trading and the subterfuge and all that stuff, and none of that's explored really as fully as it could be. So a lot of potential there that they didn't quite realise, but I found it enjoyable. But it's good. Fury Road up very soon.
Very shortly.
Next, Clue?
Yes, I was just going to say, we are sticking in the very, very great year of 1985.
It was a good year for us anyway.
To look at Clue the movie, which we're looking at next week. So thanks very much for coming out discussing Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, guys, and we'll speak to you all very soon.
Good to see you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Stay in touch with us by visiting realchat.com.au. Check us out on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at RealChatPodcast, Instagram real_chat_podcast. And if you haven't already, catch up with past episodes and subscribe to new episodes on iTunes.